She inquired what he thought of her bikini, laughingly suggesting they take a picture, since she hadn't worn one in so long. They took a photo, but both had their eyes closed. Though she saved it, he wanted to retake it, and when she didn't, he took her phone, surprising her with his closeness. She blushed as he complimented the picture. Embarrassed, she admitted that she was self-conscious about showing her skin and confided that he was the only one she felt comfortable showing her swimsuit to, leaving him wondering what she meant. He assumed it was due to her tattoo and assures her he had promised to keep it secret. She appreciated the sentiment and said it was enough of the bikini for now, suggesting they return to the others. When he asked if she was sure, citing concerns about being spotted by the crazy driver, she reassured him that they could explain things. As he confidently walked away, she suddenly hugged him from behind, expressing how she had always wanted to do that since he had done something similar earlier. She cherished the warmth of his back and confessed that she only felt comfortable wearing the bikini because it was for him. She confessed that she knows he won't remember everything, so she'll give him something to remember. She also revealed that what she said before, she meant something else. He's the only one she would show her swimsuit. Meanwhile, Jaewon, frustrated and hungry, searched for him, wondering why he was taking so long. As Kir Young said, he was going to the bathroom, but he took a long time, and she couldn't find anyone else. Worse, she was hungry. She then heard Sian discussing the sexy boy and thought maybe they should search elsewhere. But soon they noticed Jaewon and asked where she had been. She said she had been by the pool. Sian deduced that she had a bikini underneath and wanted to see it, leading her to do something unethical. Jaewon turned away, confused, but Sian was really happy by the sight. At that moment, they suggested checking the upper bedroom one more time. Meanwhile, Kir Young was sleeping on Jakey Young's lap, and Jakey Young, remembering everything she did, felt embarrassed. She thought about how cute Kir Young looked while sleeping and wanted to take a picture. But suddenly, Jakey Young heard unfamiliar voices. She wondered who was approaching with a saddened expression. When the bodyguard barged in, mistaking Kir Young for the sexy boy, Jakey Young immediately throwed him on the floor without a second thought. Later, Sian and Jaewon arrived, but Jaewon was breathless. Sian saw Kir Young lying on the floor while Jakey Young sat on the sofa. Sian asked if Kir Young was dead and questioned if Jakey Young had taken care of the sexy boy. Jaewon, confused, asked what sexy boy they were talking about. She only saw Kir Young. Moments later, they tied Kir Young up so he couldn't move, and Sian wanted to play with Jakey Young. They played cards and even had pillow fights. The bodyguard and Minsik tested their strength by balancing the girls on their heads. Everyone had fun, except for Kir Young, who was tied up. The next day, Jakey Young and Jaewon told Sian that they had a lot of fun but they needed to leave. Sian asked Jaewon if she enjoyed herself, and Jaewon nervously said yes. Meanwhile, Kir Young was confused, not knowing what happened. Jakey Young told him not to drink again, explaining how hard it was to untie him secretly, but he didn't understand what she was talking about. Sian then realized she never saw Jakey Young in a bikini and planned to invite her to bathe together next time. At that moment, Sian's bodyguard informed her that he would be on vacation until tomorrow. He didn't feel comfortable leaving her alone, knowing it was an important day for her, but Sian reassured him. However, he told her that he arranged for someone else to take care of her while he was away. Surprised, Sian asked who it was, and the driver lowered his head, assuring her that this person was talented and trustworthy. Sian couldn't believe the driver was being replaced, but she decided to trust his judgment. Later, in the pool, Sian put on a swimsuit, declaring how perfect swimsuits are in summer. She hadn't had time to use it the day before, so she decided to take pictures and enjoy her morning. Suddenly, Minsik appeared, asking if she needed anything. She screamed, questioning why he wasn't home and accusing him of treating her like an orc treats an elf. Calmly, Minsik explained that he worked there under contract until tomorrow and was responsible for taking care of her. Later, Kir Young noticed bruises on his wrists, which made him feel uneasy. Sian asked Minsik if he was serving her, feeling disturbed by this news. She couldn't believe that the person driver Choi had spoken about was him. Why him? She thought Minsik must have threatened the driver to take advantage of her, the little elf, and worried he would see everything. However, Minsik reassured her that he was just there to protect her and do his job. Sian exclaimed in frustration, questioning why Minsik was speaking formally since they were the same age. She didn't want him to call her Miss anymore. Irritated, Minsik commented that he understood her crazy twin tails. She did something indescribable, questioning if these looked like twin tails. He asked if she wanted a massage, but she ordered him to bring driver Choi back. Later, Minsik gave Sian a massage, asking if it felt good. She replied yes, and he was happy to hear it. She then requested he focus on her waist, and when he skillfully massaged her back, Sian screamed in ecstasy, accusing him of touching a sensitive spot on purpose. He reminded her that she asked for it, but she told him to forget about it, declaring that it was time for lunch and ordering him to cook. Sian doubted Minsik's ability to cook, but moments later, a variety of dishes appeared before her: seaweed soup, geranium mari, and more. Minsik told her to enjoy the meal, leaving Sian flabbergasted. She marveled at how well he cooked and asked how he learned to make such delicious food. Minsik informed her that he learned from his mother, impressing her further. He even prepared a chocolate parfait for dessert. While Sian worked on her computer, Minsik offered her a cup of coffee. The house was spotless, and Sian was amazed at how clean it was. Her bath was prepared on time, and she was pleased with it. As she relaxed, Sian wondered what was wrong with Minsik, but she liked the attention. Though he wasn't driver Choi, he was acting just like a husband, and it made her reconsider her perception of orcs versus elves. When it was time to sleep, Minsik prepared her bed, asking if she needed anything else. She told him it was fine and that he should get some rest. She even told him he could sleep in any of the bedrooms since there were plenty available. However, before he left, she informed him that they would be going out the next day for an important appointment, and he should keep that in mind. Minsik asked if the appointment was with her father. Irritated, Sian turned around and questioned how he knew about that. Had he researched her? Minsik explained that driver Choi had mentioned it. Sian confirmed that she was meeting her father the next day. Though she was a high schooler, she was looking forward to it. However, feeling tired, she decided to go to bed early. Minsik reflected on her words. Driver Choi had told him that the job wouldn't be difficult. All he needed to do was memorize her schedule, prepare in advance, assist her when needed, and be kind to her, especially for the important dinner with her father the next day. She's meeting up with her father after 7 years. And what about her mother, you ask? Her mother died when she was a kid, so she's probably excited for tomorrow. He wants to make sure she's taken good care of. Minsik comments that he doesn't think she's childish, and he's coming tomorrow as well. He believes her father feels the same way, so she shouldn't worry and should have a good sleep. After that, he leaves. She blushes and laughs, wishing him a good night as well. Before going to bed, she wonders what she'll eat with her father tomorrow and what she should wear. The next day, early in the morning, she called Minsik to look at her. She was wearing something quite simple, yet she looked very beautiful. She inquired if it was too ordinary or if she should change into something more adult-like, but he told her that it was fine. Unfortunately, she didn't like his answer because he only said, "It's fine." She wanted him to say it was either pretty or cute. He tried to tell her she was cute, but he stuttered. She interrupted him and handed him something to read. A schedule she had written starting from the evening. It was a to-do list of things to do with her father. Have dinner together, drink coffee, travel together, go to a fashion show, watch a movie, unbox Sian's gift, go jogging together, and have breakfast. He commented that her schedule was packed. She questioned if it was too much and asked if she should remove 1 or 2 things. He told her no, reminding her that she'd been waiting for this day for a long time and they had to do everything. This made her excited, and she began laughing. She then asked if he had a driver's license or if they should take a taxi. He confirmed that he had a license. In the next scene, she was excited as it was the first time she was riding a bike. She told him to go full speed, but he cursed and told her to stop messing around. She asked him to go faster, but he reminded her that they needed to follow the law. At the cafe and restaurant, a worker inquired whose name the reservation was under, and she told them it was under Sian. Minsik informed her that he would wait nearby, but she wondered if they weren't eating together. He said he wasn't hungry right now. She told him that they still had time, so he should sit down and stay a bit longer. In a more serious tone, Minsik asked if she didn't live with her father, and if she had been living alone this whole time. She explained that, technically, she hadn't been alone. Gentleman Choi was always with her. Originally, she lived with her mom and dad, but after her mother passed away, her father left her with Gentleman Choi to earn more money. She believed he probably felt a heavy responsibility. He commented that he understood, though she noticed a mild change in his tone and wondered what was wrong. He told her it was nothing and got up to leave, as it was time to go. She felt nervous and asked what she should do. The last time her dad saw her, she was a kid. She worried he wouldn't recognize her, now that she had grown into such a beautiful elf. Minsik, slightly irritated, told her she was overreacting. He walked away, telling her he'd be outside and that she should call him when she was done. However, her words echoed in his mind, as something about the situation felt suspicious. Later in the day, she was still waiting. An attendant asked if she wanted to order anything, and she requested a coffee. She assumed her father was late due to traffic. But as time passed, people came and went, and she kept lowering her head, waiting. Eventually, the attendant asked where the other person was. She apologized and said she would call him. She then called Gentleman Choi, apologizing for interrupting his vacation. She explained that the agreed-upon time had passed, and her father still wasn't there. Gentleman Choi assured her that he would call him, giving her a small sense of hope. She thought to herself that perhaps half of her plans for the day were too much, as her father was running late, but she was still confident that he would be impressed by how she had changed into an elf. But as hours passed, there was still no sign of him. Eventually, she called Gentleman Choi again. Whatever he told her seemed to drain her spirit. She informed the attendant that something had come up and that she would return another time. Later, she exited the cafe, where Minsik was still sitting alone, waiting for her. She apologized for being late, but he told her it was okay. He asked if she had a good time, and she forced a smile, commenting that the coffee was good, but she just wanted to go home. He asked if they had any other stops on the way, and she told him no. He handed her a helmet to wear. Suddenly, she tried to thank him, but she was stuttering, trying to hold back her tears. It was futile. She crouched down and began crying, covering her face with her hands as the tears fell like rain. Minsik remembered how she had cheered him up during his lowest moments, so he took out his handkerchief and told her not to cry. Later, they sat together on a bench in silence. After a while, he asked if she was done crying. She told him she wasn't crying, but he knew she wasn't being honest. He asked if her father had arrived, and she admitted that he hadn't. He was too busy with work. She revealed that she no longer trusted him. Every time they made plans together, he broke his promises and made excuses. This wasn't the first time. Last year, around New Year's, her father even changed his phone number, so she couldn't call him directly anymore. She could only reach him through Driver Choi, but for some reason, she had really believed they would meet today. Now she knew that her father was just avoiding her. Minsik, trying to change the topic, asked if she had eaten anything. She said no. So he stood up and suggested they get something to eat, telling her there was still plenty of time and that she shouldn't feel so down. But Sian told him that she wasn't in the mood. She asked him to look at the title of her to-do list, Things to Do with My Father. Since her father never appeared, Minsik decided to make a few changes, renaming it Orc and Elf Activities To-Do List. She laughed and said, "Oh really? They planned to go out for dinner?" And Minsik wanted cheesy pork chops. She noticed that he had written down Orc instead of his name, so he seemed fine with his nickname. He told her he did it for her. They had a nice dinner, ordering a strawberry smoothie, a chocolate, and a mint latte. They even did a bit of cosplaying, where Sian showed off her expert cosplay skills. While riding on his bike, she told him to go faster, but he told her to calm down. Later, they watched a movie together, but Minsik kept glancing at her, trying to hide his expression. She noticed and asked why he was looking at her. He quickly looked away, denying that he had been. She teased him, asking if he thought she was a perv. He responded that he couldn't believe she would say something so weird. She then ran off to get something, revealing a stuffed toy of an orc. She told him it looked a bit like him and that she bought it to tease him. However, now she wanted him to keep it, which he gladly accepted. As they watched the movie, he kept the toy close to his heart. Later, as they sat in silence, she thanked him for caring about her. He told her not to worry about it. He was just doing his job. But she insisted, telling him that if it weren't for him, she would have collapsed many times. Even so, he had made her laugh a lot. Later, when driver Choi arrived, he praised Minsik for a job well done, informing him that he would receive a deposit corresponding to his work over the past 2 days. He asked Minsik if anything unusual had happened during the day, and Minsik replied that nothing had. However, Minsik had a question. He wanted to know the real reason why her father couldn't meet up with her. He suspected that the job excuse was just a cover. Driver Choi began to say that the truth was, but at that moment, Sian interrupted them, calling for Minsik. She reminded him to take good care of the plushie she had given him. Driver Choi suggested they continue the conversation later. At that moment, Minsik left with the plushie in hand, looking back at Sian, who was waving at him happily, telling him to come by again next time. To her surprise, he approached her and patted her on the head, smiling as he told her he would visit again. Driver Choi commented that Minsik was an exceptional and wonderful young man. He then informed Sian that her violin teacher would be arriving soon, so she should get ready. When he glanced at her again, he noticed her face was blushing red, and she exclaimed that the orc had taken her purity. The next day, Kir Young was at home looking in the mirror, examining himself. It had been 3 months since he started exercising with Minsik, but he hadn't noticed any changes in his body. Suddenly, his sister barged in, questioning what he was doing. He asked if he looked better, trying to muscle up and showing off. She commented that he was still as thin as an anchovy. He argued that he had lost a little weight and, if he kept it up, he would get in shape. His sister then declared that she had lied. He hadn't changed at all, and she believed Jakey Young would say the same. Laughing, she ran away at full speed. Kir Young questioned what Jakey Young had to do with this. As he walked down the street, he was still mad at his sister. Why did she have to bring up Jakey Young? No way was he buying her pizza anytime soon. Now that he thought about it, the reason he started working out in the first place was because of Jakey Young. He didn't want to be weaker than her, but now that he had been exercising with Minsik, his stamina had improved, and he shouldn't be weaker anymore. If he were, it would be embarrassing. Suddenly, Kir Young bumped into a guy. The guy asked if Kir Young did that on purpose and if he wanted to fight. The group of guys looked like a bunch of weird creatures. The guy told Kir Young that if he didn't apologize, they'd have to beat him up. Kir Young quickly bowed and apologized, walking away as the guy commented that he'd forgive him this time. Kir Young wondered what was wrong with them. Suddenly, it dawned on him. What if he found himself in the same situation with Jakey Young? Would he be able to tell her to step aside and deal with it himself? He should act that way, but why was he even thinking about this? He needed to get to the gym already. Just then, Jakey Young called his name and patted him on the back. Startled, he greeted her as she asked what he was doing there. He informed her he was heading to the gym. She told him it was great that he was going at it every day and mentioned that she was going to work out too. He asked if she was really going dressed like that. She told him no, the gym provided clothes. Kir Young wondered why he was feeling this way. Was it because it had been a while since he had seen her? Why was he so nervous? Felt like he couldn't even speak properly. Now that he thought about it, they hadn't seen each other since the sleepover at Sian's house. With those thoughts in his mind, she told him to give it his all before leaving. Kir Young clenched his fist and called her name, asking if she was free right now. Jakey Young blushed nervously as she turned to face him. He asked if she would like to grab a coffee with him, and she smiled and said yes. At the cafe, they talked about her smoking habits, and she informed him that she had quit smoking since the day they went to the movies together. He was happy and told her it was good that she stopped for the sake of her health. He encouraged her, though she seemed a bit tired. Suddenly, Kir Young remembered that on the rooftop, he had told her to stop smoking. Seeing her smoking for the first time had been a shock. He couldn't even imagine her doing that. He pondered if she had stopped because she was being considerate of him. He laughed and exclaimed how sweet that would be. Seeing him smile, Jakey Young wondered if he was thinking something pervy, but he quickly denied it. She teased him, saying it didn't matter. He had an imaginative face. She asked what he had been doing over the break, and he told her he had been thinking about inviting her over to watch a movie. Suddenly, they overheard a girl's voice, pleading to be left alone. A group of guys was harassing her. Jakey Young rushed in, declaring that they had to help, but Kir Young told her to hold on, saying he would handle it. Normally, he would report it to the authorities, but he remembered his sister's words, that he hadn't changed at all. He was sure that his stamina had improved, and he wanted to prove himself. He approached the group and told them to back off. The guys recognized him as the one who bumped into them earlier. Laughing, they asked if he was acting tough because there were girls around. The leader of the bullies sarcastically asked how old Kir Young was, before Kir Young told them they were the same age. He insisted they stop threatening the girl, saying it was obvious from the way she was trembling in fear. The bully mocked him, saying maybe she was just cold. Kir Young declared he would be leaving with the girl, so they should stop harassing her. The bullies taunted him as he tried to escort the girl away. Jakey Young praised Kir Young, saying he looked like a hero, which caught the bullies' attention. The situation escalated when one of the bullies threw a stone that hit Jakey Young in the head. The leader claimed he hadn't meant to hit her. It was a mistake. Kir Young's anger boiled over, and he confronted the bully, demanding to know what he had just done. Just as Kir Young was about to punch him, Jakey Young intervened, calming him down. However, the guy called her something he shouldn't have. The bully rushed at them, yelling for them to stop right there, declaring that Kir Young was just about to punch him. He demanded that they apologize immediately, but then he was hit in the head with a stone. Grabbing his forehead, his lackeys exclaimed, "Boss!" Jakey Young, with a smirk, said that she was aiming to throw the rock back but missed. Her eyes gleamed mischievously as she mockingly told him, "Sorry." Realizing they were outmatched, Jakey Young decided to run away. The bully soon gave chase, and the bully thought to himself that when Kir Young and the girls were caught, he would make them apologize for what they did. Kir Young felt a bit upset that he hadn't been able to protect Jakey Young, but he decided that running away was the best thing to do. Later in the night, after they had escaped the strange bullies, Jakey Young commented on how many weird people there were in the world. Kir Young reflected on the fact that he almost made a mistake. If he had followed through with that punch, things would have surely escalated. They had 3 people, and if they had gotten mad and attacked all at once, he would have surely been hurt, and even Jakey Young would have been in danger. When Jakey Young was hit by the rock, what could he have done? Maybe if he was built like Minsik, she would have been treated differently. Jakey Young inquires if he was planning on punching the bald guy, and he admits that it's true. He explains that he was just really angry, and it wasn't the right thing to do. She smiles and asks if he did it for her because they threw a rock at her head. She tells him he's sweet, and she's correct. She starts laughing and thanks him, saying that he's very cool for what he did to help her. Like a real hero at the gym, he informs Minsik that he wants to increase his exercise routine 3-fold. Minsik encourages him but asks if there's a reason. Of course, there is. He wants to get crazy strong. When Minsik asks for who, Kir Young smiles and says it's for Jakey Young. Meanwhile, in the park, a girl sits on a bench and realizes the girl she met earlier looks different. But there's no doubt it's Jakey Young. The next day, Jaiwon is sitting alone on a park bench, feeling like she's going crazy because her best friend is nowhere to be found. She calls her and asks why she hasn't arrived yet. Sung-hai says she'll leave in 5 minutes, but Jaiwon knows she's still in her house, lying on her bed. Sung-hai hangs up. Jaiwon wonders what's wrong with her friend, and grows furious. Suddenly, Kir Young greets her. As usual, she asks who he is, and he tells her that he's Kir Young. She asks if that's really him, as it's been some time since they've seen each other. He asks how she's been, what she's done over the summer break, and why she's sitting alone. She tells him that she's waiting for a friend, and he asks if she's gained weight, but she quickly explains it's just the color of her shirt. Jaiwon is surprised to see him, but since they live in the same neighborhood, it's not strange that they meet. However, she wonders why now. If she knew this would happen, she would have worn something different, something cuter. Then, she wonders what she's thinking. Who does he think he is? Her boyfriend. She just wants it all to end. Kir Young asks why she would want that and invites her to go running with him around the neighborhood. She declines, saying she doesn't like to move or sweat. He comments that she must be really weak, which enrages her and sparks her competitive side. She declares that if he can do it, she can too, and tell him not to lag behind. He suggests they take it slow so they don't push themselves too hard, while later, Jaewon is out of breath and exhausted, needing to sit on a bench to regain some energy. Kir Young asks what's wrong. They've only been running for a minute, but she's as red as kimchi. She glares at him, wondering why he's doing this to her. He apologizes, telling her to just sit while he continues his run. However, as he looks at her, he becomes nervous, noticing her giant melons are showing, and it's quite distracting. She asks why he's staring at her, asking if he has an issue. Flustered, he waves it off, saying it's nothing, and that he'll be back after his run. Before leaving, he hands her his sweater, commenting that it's too hot to run with it on, so she should wear it. She asks who would put on such a stinky jacket, but after looking down, she quickly realizes why he offered it. Embarrassed, she puts it on and calls him a creep. When Kir Young returns after his run, Jaewon asks what he wants to do now, telling him to go away because he reeks of sweat. He asks if she can get him some water, but she doesn't have any. He then suggests she go to the convenience store and buy some. She snaps, asking who he thinks she is, his servant? But not long after, she returns with water, and he drinks it all, leaving her shocked. She thought he was just a loser, but it turns out he works out, so he must be taking care of his shape. He asks if he really seems like a loser, and she explains that she didn't mean it like that. He jokingly agrees, acknowledging that he's a bit nerdy, but she doesn't have to worry about it. She recalls how last time she said the same thing to him. He reminds her of the harsh things she said. That he has no style, his fashion sense sucks, he's antisocial, out of shape, a little otaku, and annoying. She asks if she hurt him, but he smiles and says not at all. He admits that he's weaker than other guys and a little clumsy too. But you know what? Sometimes you just have to move forward. After saying his goodbyes, Kir Young leaves, and Jaewon reflects on how cool it is that he started working out. Suddenly, Sung Hai arrives and asks who she was talking about. Jaewon asks when she got there, and Sung Hai replies just now, but inquires who she was calling cool. Jaewon quickly denies it, saying it's nothing, but Sung Hai suspects she saw some guy while she was waiting. At home, Kir Young realizes he forgot his jacket. The next day, Kir Young and his sister walk together, and she suggests they buy some pizza on their way home. Kir Young thinks it's not a good idea, as they had pizza just 2 days ago, but she insists she never gets tired of eating it every day. He points out that he bought the clothes she's wearing, making her comment that he has a sister who wants to blackmail her brother. He asks if she shouldn't be the one buying pizza today, and she begrudgingly agrees, asking what kind of pizza he wants. He says he likes bulgogi pizza, but she prefers pepperoni, so they decide to go half and half. At that moment, a girl approaches them, asking Kir Young to hold on as she wants to talk to him. They continue walking, discussing pizza, ignoring her. The girl is left flabbergasted, standing frozen for a moment. She then turns around and calls out to him again, but suddenly trips over her own shoes and falls flat on her face. Hearing the noise, Kir Young and his sister turn around and see her lying on the ground. Sulji asks if she's okay, but Kir Young has no idea what's happening. The girl gets up and asks if he knows Jakey Young. He responds that he does while wondering who she is. Maybe she knows Jakey Young? Observing her closer, he realizes she fell pretty hard, and it must hurt, though she doesn't show it much. Kir Young tells Suluji to go home. He hands her his bags and she walks away, commenting that her playboy brother has seduced another one. The girl introduces herself as Kang Hyesung and says she's 18 years old. She describes herself as confident and sexy, but Kir Young is confused, asking what she's talking about. She brushes it off, her voice too low to hear properly. Kir Young introduces himself, and she calls him the dumb guy. Upon closer inspection, He recognizes her as the girl who was getting picked on last time, the one being intimidated by those 3 sleeveless idiots. He asks if she's that girl and she confirms it. She comments that he was with Jakey Young back then and asks what he wants to talk about with her. He tells her to take a seat so they can talk. However, she accidentally hits her leg on the bench and is now in a lot of pain again. She's a bit clumsy. She explains that all he had to do was simply call her because she doesn't have Jakey Young's number. He then questions how she knows her. She explains that they met back in middle school. He asks a barrage of questions: were they close, how was she back in middle school, etc. She questions if he's curious and tells him she'll explain. It was 2 years ago in the spring. Jakey Young and her didn't know each other at all and were never together because they were so different. One day she was walking down the hallway and, no surprise, she slipped and landed face first on the ground. She was very clumsy back then as well. Someone standing over her talked to her. Kir Young interrupted, asking if it was Jakey Young and if she was polite. She continued, stating that at that moment, Jakey Young said, "Get out of my way," while looking at her with arrogance. She commented that Jakey Young had been annoyed since the morning. Kir Young quietly smiled, questioning if Jakey Young really said that when she fell. The girl explained that the reason she's looking for Jakey Young is that she wants her to apologize. Her last memory of Jakey Young is that she was a bad girl. Upon hearing this, Kir Young reflected on the events that occurred earlier and the secret that was revealed to him. Kang Hyesung inquired if Kir Young wanted to hear more about what kind of girl Jakey Young was in middle school. She continued, revealing that after listening to what Jakey Young said, she looked her in the eyes, and Jakey Young seemed a bit confused. Suddenly, Kang Hyesung began crying, commenting that it was too much. Back then she was very sensitive. Suddenly, Jakey Young ordered her to stop before she got angry. This made Kang Hyesung cry even more, and she screamed. Her scream attracted the attention of a group of students who wondered what was happening. They noticed her and questioned what was wrong. They asked if it was Jakey Young who made her cry. Suddenly, Jakey Young grabbed her hand and told her to come with her. That's how her first interaction with Jakey Young went. After dragging her away, she felt overwhelmed by the power of Jakey Young's body. She was trembling, preparing to be hit. Jakey Young, in a concerned tone, asked why she was crying. But Kang Hyesung looked away and insisted she wasn't crying. She was yawning, and it was just an impulse. Jakey Young quickly believed her and told her she was leaving if that was the case. Kang Hyesung questioned whether Jakey Young wasn't going to hit her, and Jakey Young replied, "Why would I do that?" She walked away, commenting that Kang Hyesung was a strange girl. Contrary to what she expected, Jakey Young didn't hit her. This caused Kang Hyesung to wonder if Jakey Young was actually a good person. That's what she thought. After that, she encountered Jakey Young in the hallway, and she greeted her unexpectedly. She thought Jakey Young would say something like, "Who are you saying hi to?" or, "Don't pretend to be close to me because you offended me." However, to her surprise, Jakey Young said hello back. There's that strange feeling people get. The one where, after saying hello once, you feel like you have to keep greeting them. So after that, every time she saw Jakey Young, she would greet her no matter where they were. Whether passing by the bathroom or even when Jakey Young was smoking. One day it was raining, and Kang Hyesung needed to go home quickly. However, when she saw Jakey Young, she noticed Jakey Young didn't bring an umbrella. She greeted Jakey Young as usual, and they both went back to what they were doing. But Kang Hyesung questioned if Jakey Young didn't bring an umbrella. Jakey Young told her no, and when asked if she wanted to share, Jakey Young told her to forget it, commenting that she would get soaked. Kang Hyesung insisted she use the umbrella and told her she had a smaller one in her locker. She gave Jakey Young her umbrella and walked away. As she was leaving, Jakey Young asked what her name was, and she introduced herself as Kang Hyesung. Jakey Young took the umbrella and walked away, telling her she'd return it tomorrow. That's how they started communicating. Kir Young mused that Jakey Young was very aggressive back then. Then something happened while Kang Hyesung was walking down the hallway. A group of students was laughing and telling a story. However, Kang Hyesung accidentally bumped into one of the girl's shoulders. She quickly turned around and apologized, but the girl, like a typical bully, taunted her, calling her a shoulder bumper. Kang Hyesung apologized again, admitting it was her fault. However, the girl slapped her across the face, stating that if someone hits, they should also get hit. Because of the force, Kang Hyesung fell to the ground. One of the boys commented on how strong the girl was, while the bully commented that she was weak and fragile. Another boy made fun of her eyes, questioning why they looked the way they did. Kang Hyesung defended herself, saying her eyes were normal, but the bully kicked her in the face, calling her ugly. One of the boys told her to stop, warning what might happen if Kang Hyesung retaliated. The girl, dismissing the idea, said she was only defending herself since Kang Hyesung hit her shoulder first. Another student apologized to Kang Hyesung, saying she should just stay out of it. Suddenly, Jakey Young arrived. The bully questioned who she was. Jakey Young inquired who the hell the girl thought she was. The girl, laughing, inquired if they heard what she called her. Her friends, overhearing this, commented that she must be crazy. Jakey Young didn't care, commenting that she was worse than a dog in reality. This caused Kang Hyesung to laugh, which angered the bullies. They believed Jakey Young thought she was better than them. The girl ordered Jakey Young to stop before she ends her. Jakey Young told her to try it. Suddenly, one of the girl's friends recognized Jakey Young, commenting that she's known for being very mean and has no friends because of her bad personality. It's like she's always smoking a cigarette. There's also a rumor that she's dyke. The girl commented that she didn't like Jakey Young's appearance, but supposed it was normal for her to look that bad. She then told Jakey Young she was sorry and wouldn't do anything to her, asking her to leave them alone. However, in an instant, her face contorted, resembling an old, wrinkled pig. Jakey Young punched her in the face and commented that she didn't understand why they believed they were in the right. The boys stared at her in shock, and the girl fell to the ground with a bloodied nose. This caused more students to gather, wondering what was happening. Seeing the crowd, one of the boys suggested they leave as everyone was getting closer. Another commented that Jakey Young had messed up, asking if she thought nothing would happen to her. However, Jakey Young calmly stated that she was sorry but had nothing left to lose. She then ordered them to move out of her way. The girl, bruised and injured on the ground, was unable to move, but Jakey Young remarked that she was trying to beat her up. This enraged one of the boys, who told her not to mess with him. He tried to punch her, but Jakey Young swiftly poked both of his eyes in an instant. She calmly walked towards the other boy as he screamed in pain, his face drenched in sweat. She told him to get out of the way, and he immediately moved to the other side. Jakey Young grabbed the girl's shirt and began picking her up. Fear was evident in the girl's eyes, but Jakey Young decided to sit on top of her and told her to grit her teeth. Just like that, the bad people who had hit Hyesung for no reason were all beaten up by Jakey Young. Kang Hyesung was saved by Jakey Young in that moment. Kir Young was surprised to know that Jakey Young was such a good fighter. She commented that the whole thing was crazy. If it were him, he probably would have lost. He was amazed. He had known Jakey Young was strong, but he couldn't believe how well she fought. She was incredible. As a result of the fight, a professor eventually arrived. Kang Hyesung wasn't sure if it was because she didn't want the situation to escalate further or because she was embarrassed, but she simply told the professor they had a fight. As a result, they only got detention for a bit and the whole thing was over. However, now that she thinks about it, she was the only one who took a beating. It felt quite unjust. After that, the teacher told them not to fight and to get along. The teacher also told Jakey Young that she had been to the director's office more than once for the same issue, asking why she wasn't being more careful and if she could calm down. When the teacher spoke, he said she needed to keep her eyes open. But as she listened, she merely stared back with a blank look. Unfortunately, he couldn't see her in a positive light, so he told her to just go back to class. On their way back to class, someone called her name from afar. It was Kang Hyesung, apologizing for getting her in trouble, as Jakey Young had only been trying to help her. Because of that, bad things were said even by the professor. Jakey Young asked her what she was saying, as she couldn't hear her clearly. Jakey Young exclaimed, saying that they were even. Then she commented that she ripped Kang Hyesung's umbrella and ate it. As she walked away, she told her to just leave it for the day. But that was when Kang Hyesung knew she wanted to get closer to Jakey Young. So, she approached her and suggested they go to karaoke after class. Jakey Young was unsure why all of a sudden, but Kang Hyesung simply wanted to hang out with her. They went through songs really fast, singing horribly and dancing to the bad music. During breaks, they would walk together hand in hand, like other girls. They even became close friends. One day, Kang Hyesung told Jakey Young that when she first saw her, she thought she was very abusive. But now she was so happy to be her friend, and even I, the narrator, wished I could be her man. Jakey Young revealed that she felt the same way, and this made Kang Hyesung really happy. Felt like she would have a friend for life. But after that day, Jakey Young stopped coming to school. Kang Hyesung talked to a student about Jakey Young's absence, and he suggested she send her a message. Unfortunately, Kang Hyesung didn't know her phone number. She asked the student if he had it, but he apologized, saying he didn't. This left Kang Hyesung confused. They had so much fun together, but now Jakey Young had vanished without saying a word. She wished she knew what had happened to her. A few days later, Kang Hyesung saw Jakey Young again, walking down the corridor alone. She rushed to her, declaring how long it had been and asking why she hadn't been at school. However, she was shocked when she saw Jakey Young. Her eye was purple and swollen, and her face was bruised and scarred. What kind of monster could do that to such a pretty face? She asked Jakey Young if she had gotten into a fight, but Jakey Young only said that she had fallen. Something felt off, but Kang Hyesung decided not to press further and instead asked if she wanted to get tteokbokki after school. However, Jakey Young told her that she was going to drop out of school. Kang Hyesung was surprised and questioned why, but Jakey Young only said she felt like it. She began walking away, telling Kang Hyesung that she had come to say goodbye. Kang Hyesung was left questioning what was going on, offering her help if she needed it. But Jakey Young said there was nothing to say and that she didn't need her help. Kang Hyesung was speechless. She wondered what Jakey Young meant by saying there was nothing she could help with. She knew something had happened, but Jakey Young wouldn't tell her. Overcome with emotion, Kang Hyesung began to cry, asking if they weren't supposed to be friends. After that, she never saw Jakey Young again, so she decided to talk to Kir Young because they had met around this area. Kang Hyesung explained that she wanted an apology from Jakey Young for disappearing without saying anything to her friend. As a result of this story, Kir Young sent Jakey Young a message, but she didn't even read it. Surprisingly, she stood him up. Kir Young asked Kang Hyesung what she would do once she finally met Jakey Young again. Kang Hyesung declared that she would mess her up until she begged for help. She would make Jakey Young apologize for leaving without an explanation, even slap her if necessary. Kir Young thought this might be going too far and suggested calling Jakey Young first. At that moment, Jakey Young arrived, greeting Kang Hyesung and saying it had been a while. She asked how Kang Hyesung had been. Kang Hyesung looked her straight in the eye, calling her an idiot and asking why she was acting so polite. Did she want to die? She demanded to know what Jakey Young had been up to and why she hadn't said anything. Did she even know how lonely she had been without her? Kang Hyesung accused Jakey Young of being a bad friend, but then Jakey Young said she never called her, which left her flabbergasted. Suddenly, Jakey Young apologized. She explained that she had been going through a really rough time back then and hadn't even thought about her. Kang Hyesung asked if Jakey Young was at least okay now. Jakey Young said that she was doing better. Kang Hyesung, however, walked away, telling her that she was glad to hear that. She then revealed that she was planning to mess Jakey Young up, which surprised her. But even so, it was good to see her again. Jakey Young thanked her for finding her and said she was happy to have been her friend. Hearing these words brought back memories of all the good times they had shared. Kang Hyesung smiled and agreed, saying, "Likewise." Later in the day, after Kang Hyesung had left, Kir Young and Jakey Young walked together. Kir Young was happy to have gotten Jakey Young's number. She was a great friend, and he was glad to see her reconnecting with Kang Hyesung. However, after hearing Kang Hyesung's story, Kir Young still had doubts. What had really happened to Jakey Young? Why had she dropped out and who had beaten her so badly back then? Jakey Young seemed like a completely different person now. He was curious, but it felt rude to pry into her past. It was better to stay silent for now. At that moment, Jakey Young asked if he was free. He told her yes, and she revealed that she was thinking of going for a walk. She asked if he would like to join her. He smiled and said he would love to. Then she asked if they should get coffee too, which he happily agreed to.